Hello everyone, my name is Emily Johnson, and I never imagined I would be writing this. But after everything that happened to me, I realized I have no other choice. I'm a single mother of 2 small children, doing my best every day to keep our lives afloat. On February 15, 2025, everything changed. I was driving home from work when I was involved in a terrible accident. The doctors said I was clinically dead for 6 minutes and 48 seconds, but what happened during that time changed me forever. What God revealed to me about life's struggles, the pain we carry, and the deepest truths that most people ignore left me speechless. And now, I feel that I have to share this with the world. It was February 15th, 2025, and everything seemed normal until the moment my life turned upside down. I had just finished my shift at the hospital where I worked as a nurse. I was exhausted with aching legs, but I still needed to go to the store to buy some groceries and prepare dinner for my children. That's how life was, a constant struggle to keep everything running without letting anything fall apart. I had managed to get a second job, working at a store at night, to try to pay the bills and give the best to my children. That night was particularly tiring, but I knew I couldn't stop. It was around 8:30 p.m. when I got into my car, already tired and with my mind full of worries. The streets of New York were busy, as always, and the traffic lights reflected on the sidewalk, wet from the rain that had fallen earlier. I was barely paying attention to the road, lost in thoughts about the bills that kept coming, about the challenges at my older son's school, and about what I would do to earn more money. That's when the accident happened. Suddenly, the sound of a car coming toward me, followed by a brutal impact. I barely had time to react. The pain was intense, a strong blow to the chest, and then darkness. When I woke up, I found myself floating above my body. I could see myself there, lying on the steering wheel, with blood dripping from my forehead. People were running to the accident scene, and I could hear sirens approaching. I saw the paramedics pulling my body from the car and starting to work on me right there on the street. One of them, a young man with gentle eyes, was praying quietly while trying to revive me. The strangest thing was that despite all the chaos, I didn't feel fear or pain. It was as if I was being wrapped in a protective embrace, as if I was at peace. Suddenly, something changed. A soft light began to surround me, and the noise from the street gradually faded. I felt light, as if I was being pulled away from all that chaos. And then, I saw it. A tunnel of light. It wasn't an ordinary light. It didn't come from a single source, but it seemed alive, pulsating with serene and welcoming energy. I didn't hesitate. Something inside me knew that was the place I was meant to go. I didn't fear death. On the contrary, I felt more alive than ever. As I entered the light, everything around me changed. The sound of the accident disappeared completely, and I found myself in a space where the golden light flowed as if it was part of me, part of everything around me. The feeling of peace was indescribable. I was overwhelmed by a love and serenity so intense that tears began to fall from my face. It was then that I realized I wasn't alone. To my right, a figure began to approach. At first, I couldn't see his face because the light around him was so bright. But then he spoke, and his voice made my soul tremble. "Emily," he said with a soft authority, "come to me." I immediately knew who he was. Even before I clearly saw his face, I felt the presence of Jesus in a way I had never experienced. He was there, in front of me, and something in his gaze made me feel completely and utterly loved. His smile radiated warmth, and his eyes reflected deep compassion. I fell to my knees, completely overwhelmed by his presence, unable to speak. The holiness I felt there made me realize how small and insignificant I was compared to that pure being. But instead of judgment, I felt something even more powerful: acceptance. Jesus came closer and extended his hand to lift me up. His touch was gentle yet firm, and at the instant he touched me, I felt all my fears and burdens melt away. He began walking, and I, without thinking, followed him. We were no longer on the earth. It felt like we were floating, walking on the light, as if it were our foundation. Walking beside him, I realized I didn't need words to understand what he wanted to tell me. I knew in a deep way what he was thinking. The communication between us wasn't by words, but through a direct connection with my soul. "You have questions," he said. "Yes, Lord," I replied, finally finding my voice. "Why am I here? What happened to me?" He stopped, and with a look full of compassion he answered me. "You were chosen to see what is to come and to tell my people what you saw." I continued walking with Jesus through the tunnel of light, and as we walked, the light around us began to transform. It was no longer just light, but also images, visions unfolding before my eyes. I saw flashes of great cities, New York, London, Tokyo, all with their busy streets, people hurrying from one place to another. But there was something wrong. The people seemed empty. Their faces were expressionless, as if they were just going through a routine without meaning. And although they were surrounded by luxurious skyscrapers, expensive cars, and designer clothes, something in their eyes was lost. "Why are they like this?" I asked, confused. "They are spiritually hungry," said Jesus, with sadness in his voice. "They have everything the world says they need, but their souls are empty." Then I could see their faces more clearly, and something shocked me. Many of them were white. This confused me even more. "Lord, I always thought poverty affected more people of color," I said. Jesus shook his head, correcting me. "The poverty of the soul knows no color, Emily. What you see here is a different poverty, a spiritual poverty. They were deceived into believing that wealth and status are enough, but in truth, they are dying inside." Jesus paused, and his gaze filled with sadness. "They have forgotten about me," he said, with visible pain in his eyes. "They think success will solve their problems, but they've cut themselves off from me, and without me, they will always be empty." The vision then intensified. I saw families around dinner tables, all immersed in their phones, not communicating, as if they were distant from each other. The houses were large, but the atmosphere inside them was cold. The silence was oppressive, and a sense of anxiety and fear hung in the air. "Lord, why are they so lost?" I asked, trying to understand. "Because the enemy has blinded them," he replied, his voice soft but full of pain. "They've placed their trust in money, status, comfort, but not in me." He then showed me something even more shocking. I saw churches full of people, but they were not truly worshipping. Their prayers were mechanical, their hymns empty. They were there out of routine, but with no real connection. "They don't know me," said Jesus with a sigh. "They know about me, but they don't know who I am." Jesus came closer and placed his hand on my shoulder. "Tell them," he said softly, "tell them to seek me, not the world. Tell them that true abundance comes from me, not from what they possess." I agreed, speechless, still absorbing everything that was happening. Then the light around us slowly began to fade. The last face I saw was that of Jesus before everything went completely dark. His presence was still with me, as if he had never left. Before I could process what I had just seen, the voice of Jesus echoed in my mind. "What I have shown you will not be easy to understand, but you must tell the world. Do not be afraid to share what you have seen." The vision then began to change. The light around us was fading, giving way to a dense darkness, and a feeling of oppression took over me. The warmth and peace I had felt before began to disappear, replaced by a sense of anxiety and fear. Jesus gripped my hand more tightly, as if assuring me that everything would be okay. "Do not be afraid," he said, his voice calm and firm. "I am with you." It was then that the visions began to emerge. The first scene that appeared before me was of a large city, but something was deeply wrong. The streets were full of people, but they seemed exhausted, empty. Their eyes were lifeless, their expressions apathetic. I saw men in suits, women in expensive clothes, but they all seemed trapped in a meaningless routine, as if they were just going through the motions of life without truly living. "Do you see this?" Jesus asked, his gaze serious. "Yes," I replied. "But what does it mean?" He raised his hand, and with a command, the vision changed. I no longer just saw the appearance of the people, but something deeper. I could see their souls, their spirits. I saw the rich with dry souls, as if they were consumed by an invisible darkness. On the other hand, I saw homeless people who seemed to have nothing, but their spirits shone with an internal light. "The world measures wealth by possessions," said Jesus with evident sadness. "But I see the heart." I continued to watch in shock as Jesus showed me the true nature of poverty. I saw white families sitting in long food lines, their faces thin and empty, their eyes tired. I saw communities of white people living in rundown neighborhoods, struggling to survive. This deeply confused me. I had always imagined that poverty affected more black or other ethnic communities, but now I saw that poverty doesn't choose color. "Lord, why are they suffering like this?" I asked, not understanding. Jesus looked at me with even greater sadness in his eyes. "They built their lives on sand," he said with a firm voice. "They trusted in the systems of the world and not in me. The enemy convinced them that wealth is security, but when the systems fail, how will they survive?" I saw white families sitting in their homes full of food, but with no peace. They had everything, but their hearts were full of fear and anxiety. I saw churches full of people, but they were distant from God. Their hymns were empty, their prayers were meaningless routines. "They have forgotten me," said Jesus, with a heavy sigh. "They seek comfort in the world, not in my presence. And that is why they are losing everything." Jesus then showed me the true root of the problem. He took me to a place where I could see the spiritual causes of poverty, not just the lack of resources, but the loss of spiritual identity. I saw how the enemy had distorted people's understanding of wealth and success. In some regions, poverty was caused by greed and corruption, leaders who amassed wealth while the people suffered. But in others, especially among white communities, poverty was spiritual, a blindness that prevented people from seeing the true value of life. "Look, Emily," Jesus said, pointing to a scene of a man working long hours in an office, trying to provide for his family. They work tirelessly, but at the end of the day, they feel empty, without purpose. They seek stability, but they don't find peace. "But Lord, what is happening?" I asked, trying to understand the depth of this. "They confuse material wealth with true abundance," replied Jesus, looking at me with compassion. "They think money will bring peace, but true peace only comes from me. What they seek in the world, they will never find." I saw men and women seeking status, seeking success, but their hearts were malnourished, empty. They were being deceived, believing that success would come from their achievements, but they never reached happiness. They were trapped in the illusion that more money, more comfort, more things would bring joy, when in fact they were spiritually hungry. Then Jesus showed me the true face of prosperity. He took me to a church where I saw pastors preaching about material prosperity, talking about how God wants his followers to be rich and successful. The people were listening, but the emptiness was evident. I saw their faces, trying to find comfort in the words, but the anxiety was still there, as if they knew something wasn't right. "They don't understand my concept of blessing," said Jesus with a serious look. "True blessing is not in material wealth. True blessing is peace in the heart, strength in the spirit, and a deep connection with me." I saw how the relentless pursuit of success was destructive, how society had been deceived. The more people gained, the emptier they felt. Wealth was becoming a prison. I saw men and women tired, working too hard, believing that one day happiness would come with success. but deep down, they knew they would never achieve true peace. "This is the deception of the enemy," said Jesus with sadness in his voice. "They seek happiness in the things of the world, but true happiness can only be found in me." The vision then changed again. Jesus showed me how the relentless pursuit of success was dividing people. I saw white families living in imposing homes, with everything the world considers necessary: luxury cars, designer clothes, children in private schools. But inside, the situation was different. I saw these families together, but distant from each other. They were physically together, but their connections were weak. The conversations were superficial, and everyone's eyes were distant. Even though they had everything, they were empty. They sought pleasure in what they owned, but their hearts were full of sadness. "They have everything the world offers," said Jesus with an expression of pain, "but their hearts are empty. They have built their lives on something that could collapse at any moment." I saw a rich man sitting alone in his luxurious office, looking out the window. He was surrounded by success and possessions, but the sadness on his face was deep. He had everything, but he still felt an immense emptiness. Jesus made me see that his life was built on sand, without a solid foundation. "It doesn't matter what they gain," Jesus said. "They lost the most important thing. They lost me." Jesus showed me how the world had been seduced by the illusion of success. I saw people trying to fill the emptiness with social media, buying products to display, but none of this was really satisfying. I saw women spending hours getting ready, trying to maintain a perfect image on social media, but right after the photo, sadness would take over them again. I saw men sacrificing themselves at work, chasing promotions, believing that success would bring happiness, but at the end of the day, they felt even emptier. "They are chasing an illusion," said Jesus. "The enemy convinced them that more is better, that success and status bring happiness. But the truth is, the more they gain, the more they lose themselves." I saw people isolating themselves on social media, creating a facade of perfection, but deep down, they were feeling lonely, insecure, and empty. I saw couples who, despite being together, were distant. There was no more connection, just a search for validation. What seemed like success was, in fact, a prison of loneliness and sadness. The world seeks happiness in what is visible, in what is material, Jesus explained. But true happiness is in what cannot be seen. It is in me, in the peace I offer, in the true connection that comes from a heart full of love. Jesus then showed me how the pressure to succeed was separating families. I saw a young man sitting in his car after another long day at work, crying, exhausted, and feeling completely lost. He had everything society said he should have: a good job, a comfortable home, a new car. But what he longed for most was peace. The pressure to succeed, to be the best, was destroying his inner peace. "He has everything the world offers," said Jesus, pointing to the man. "But his soul is in pieces. Success doesn't bring happiness, only more anxiety." I also saw women trying to create the perfect home, but feeling frustrated and discontent because they couldn't fill the emptiness they felt inside. They were so focused on appearances, on perfection, but the emptiness in their hearts couldn't be filled with external things. "The illusion of success is driving people's hearts away," said Jesus with a deep expression of sadness. "They think that more achievements, more material possessions, more status will bring peace. But in reality, this is drawing them further from me." Jesus then showed me how greed and pride were creating divisions among people. I saw rich people looking down on the poor, believing that their success made them superior. I also saw those who had less, feeling resentment and anger toward the wealthier ones, believing they were responsible for their situation. What Jesus made me understand was that both the rich and the poor were being manipulated by the enemy, who was sowing division, pride, and envy in their hearts. "They forget that all are equal in my eyes," said Jesus. The enemy sows discord. He creates a divide between the rich and the poor, but in my sight, all are my children. It doesn't matter what they possess. What truly matters is what is in their hearts. I saw how the division between people was spreading even within churches. White and black communities were separated, often without even knowing each other, though they were so close physically. They worshipped the same God, but the racial division kept them from truly uniting. The enemy thrives on division, said Jesus with deep sorrow. As long as my people remain divided, they will be weak. What he fears most is the unity of my people. Jesus then showed me what would happen if the divisions were overcome. I saw whites and blacks, rich and poor, coming together in prayer. I saw families of different backgrounds helping each other, breaking the barriers that had been placed between them. I saw churches open to everyone, regardless of skin color, status, or social condition. The light that spread among them was intense, and the darkness of division began to dissipate. This is the vision I have for my people, said Jesus with a hopeful smile. When my children unite, no one can stop them. I saw then how the enemy feared this unity. He knew that when God's people united, he would lose all power over them. Division, hatred, and resentment would lose their strength, and love and unity would prevail. But at the same time, Jesus warned me about what was to come. Not everyone will accept unity, he said with a serious voice. The struggle will be intense, but those who remain firm, those who seek me with all their heart, will be protected. The vision then became dark again. Jesus showed me a future where societies were collapsing. I saw cities overt. I saw cities overtaken by chaos, protests, violence, people fighting for food and shelter. The structures of power were crumbling, governments were failing, and society was fragmenting into factions. A sense of fear and uncertainty took over everything. The systems of the world are failing, said Jesus, with firmness in his voice. Many people will lose everything they have trusted in. I saw political leaders presenting new systems of control, such as digital IDs, cashless economies, and centralized control. They promised peace and security. But what seemed like a solution was, in fact, a trap. People were being deceived, accepting these new systems out of fear, without realizing they were surrendering their freedom. They will think they are solving their problems, Jesus explained. But this will be a lie. The enemy will bring control, and people will surrender to their own slavery. I saw people accepting these new systems out of desperation, believing they were the solution to their struggles. But what they didn't realize was that they were sacrificing their freedom and handing over control of their lives to the wrong hands. I saw families being separated because they refused to submit, being excluded from essential services like healthcare and food. Fear spread, and those who did not conform were left behind. This will be the test of faith, said Jesus, with a grave tone. Many will fall, but those who remain firm in me, who do not surrender to fear and control, will be protected. I saw a small group of faithful people who remained united in prayer. They had nothing, no money, no status, but the peace that radiated from them was unbreakable. Even amidst the chaos, they were protected. They knew that by trusting in God, nothing could be taken from them. These are the ones who chose to trust in me, said Jesus, with a look full of compassion. They have everything they need because they have faith. Jesus then showed me the power of faith. I saw how trust in God could change everything, even when the world around seemed to be falling apart. I saw miracles happening, food multiplying, people being healed of diseases, families finding shelter in unexpected places. Even without anything, those who trusted in God were being sustained. They had no material wealth, but they were full in spirit. When people place their trust in me, it doesn't matter what happens in the world, Jesus explained. I am the provider, the true source of everything they need. I saw how faith in God was the key to true abundance. It wasn't about what we own or what the world offers us, but about trusting fully in His providence. Even when the systems of the world failed, those rooted in faith were not shaken. When everything falls around you, remember, "I am the rock that will never be moved," said Jesus, with a smile that conveyed immense peace. Jesus then showed me how, even when the world's systems fail, those who trust in Him will be sustained. I saw a small community of faithful people who, despite having nothing, were complete. They didn't have material wealth, but they were full of peace, joy, and love. They shared whatever little they had with others, helping one another in any way possible. Even when the storms came, their faith kept them firm, like trees with deep roots that nothing could topple. "This is true abundance," said Jesus, watching that community. "They have me, and that is why they have everything they need." I saw how those who turned to God were being protected amidst the chaos. Even when everything around was chaotic, their peace was unshakable. I realized in that moment that true wealth is not in what we can touch or possess, but in what we have in our hearts, a connection with God. When people place their trust in me, there is nothing the world can do to take away what they already have, said Jesus with a soft authority. I saw then the difference between those who had faith and those who were still blind, trying to find security in the things of the world. I saw people who had accepted the mark of the system, living their lives as if nothing had changed. Their faces were empty, their prayers mechanical, and their hearts were distant from God. They had everything the world said was important, but their souls were in complete darkness. They were trapped in the enemy's snare, believing that security and happiness came from material goods. These are the ones who have given their hearts to the enemy, said Jesus, looking with sadness. They may have everything the world offers, but they are empty inside. They have lost their souls in the pursuit of security and comfort. On the other hand, I saw those who had rejected the world's offer, those who chose to trust in God instead of the corrupt and unstable systems. Their faces were full of light, their prayers were powerful, and their hearts were full. They knew that even without material things, they had the only thing that truly mattered, the presence of God. These are the ones who have chosen me, said Jesus with a look of approval. They are the ones who, even in difficult times, know that I am the rock they can trust. Then Jesus' vision became even clearer. He showed me the future, where many would be confronted with the choice to trust in God or in the false promises of the world. I saw people struggling, desperate, trying to hold on to control of their lives. But when the systems failed, they found themselves lost. But those who had placed their faith in God were at peace, even as chaos took over the world. Do not fear what is to come, said Jesus with a serene look. I will be with my children until the end of time. Those who follow me, who trust in me, will not be shaken. I saw a small community gathered in prayer while the world around them was crumbling. They had no riches, no status, but they were full of faith. I saw miracles happening around them, food multiplying, divine protection surrounding them. They didn't need what the world offered because they had everything that truly mattered, the presence of God. When everything around you crumbles, remember, said Jesus with a smile full of hope, my peace is the only thing that remains. And then Jesus showed me the contrast between those who had accepted the system and those who had placed their trust in God. I saw people living under the control of the system in fear, seeking security in things that could easily be taken away from them. Their hearts were desperate, their spirits weak. Fear and insecurity dominated their lives because they had chosen to trust in the promises of the world. They are blind, Emily, said Jesus with deep sadness. They think they are safe, but they are only trading freedom for slavery. They sought comfort in the lies of the enemy. But then he showed me another group of people, those who had turned away from the system, those who had rejected the false security the world offered. They were at peace. Even without possessions, without status, without anything the world considered important, they had the most precious thing of all, a connection with God. I saw these people in prayer, in unity, helping each other, sharing whatever little they had, but they were full of faith and trust. "These are my children," said Jesus, smiling. "They have everything because they have me, and nothing in the world can take away what I have given them." And then, Jesus' vision became even deeper. He showed me how true transformation would happen in the future. I saw people who, despite losing everything the world said was valuable, were more complete than they had ever been. They had no riches, but they were filled with something far more precious: faith, love, and peace. I saw families who had lost everything they owned, but they stood strong, united, praying together, knowing they were under God's protection. "When the things of the world disintegrate, those who choose me will have the peace the world can never offer," said Jesus with a look full of confidence. "The world may fall, but my promise remains." I saw these people gathering, sharing whatever little they had, but doing so with grateful hearts and compassion. They knew that even without material wealth, they were rich in what truly mattered: God's love and trust in His providence. "My people will be sustained, even when the world around them crumbles," Jesus affirmed, with a tranquility that was palpable, "because they will trust in me and not in the systems of the world." And then, Jesus showed me the true difference between those who trusted in God and those who still depended on the promises of the world. I saw people who had accepted the control of the system, but their hearts were heavy and their souls empty. They had traded their freedom and their connection with God for a false sense of security. They were living under the constant pressure of fear and anxiety, trying to fill a void that nothing in the world could satisfy. "This is the deception of the enemy," said Jesus, with firmness in his voice. "He makes people believe that security comes from what they possess, but true security comes from me." But then I saw those who had placed their faith in God. Even in times of crisis, they were at peace. They didn't have great riches, but they were full in spirit. They had the confidence that God would take care of every need and that sustained them. I saw these people coming together, helping each other, sharing whatever little they had, but with hearts full of love and compassion. "These are my children," said Jesus with a calm smile. "They have everything they need because they have me." Jesus then showed me the true strength of those who had placed their trust in God. I saw a small group of people, in a moment of great crisis, surrounded by difficulties that seemed insurmountable. The world was crumbling around them, but they weren't desperate. They were united in prayer, trusting in God as their rock, their fortress. Even without material resources, they were full in spirit. Nothing could shake them because they were firmly rooted in faith. "When everything seems lost, those who are in me will not fall," said Jesus, with a voice of gentle authority. "They are not afraid, because they know that I am their peace." I saw how these people, despite not possessing material goods, were richer than anyone who had everything the world could offer. They were full of light, love, hope, and this could not be taken from them. Their trust in God made them unbreakable. "I am the source of everything they need," said Jesus with a welcoming smile. "When the world crumbles, those who trust in me stand firm." Then Jesus showed me the final vision, the one that left me with a profound understanding of the future and the choice that every person would have to make. I saw the world in a moment of great crisis, with governments collapsing, financial systems breaking down, and the social order disintegrating. Chaos seemed to take over everything, and people were desperate for answers. But in the middle of this storm, I saw a small but firm group of people who continued to pray, trusting in God, and not in what the world offered. "This is my people," said Jesus, with a tone of tranquility. "Though the world is crumbling around them, those who trust in me will not be shaken. I am their security." I saw these people living with a clear purpose, knowing that, even without riches or power, they were richer than anyone else. They were full of peace, love, and faith. They shared whatever little they had, but they were complete in spirit. Even in the midst of chaos, they found joy in serving others, in loving, in trusting in God. True abundance is not in what you own, but in what you have in your heart, said Jesus. When you place your trust in me, nothing the world can do will take away what you have. Jesus then looked at me, and with a look of deep compassion he said, "Share what you have seen, Emily. Tell the people that true security is not in the things the world offers, but in me. Tell them not to fear the times that are coming, for those who seek me and trust in me will be protected. The world is changing, and many will be deceived, but those who remain firm in faith will find true peace." With these words, I felt a deep peace taking over me. The chaos around me seemed distant, as if everything were part of a bigger plan, something I could not fully understand, but knew was true. The light around me began to fade, and I felt a renewed strength within me. I knew that what I had witnessed was not something to be kept to myself. I had to share it with the world, so that people would know where to find true peace, where to place their trust. Then everything faded, and I was back in my body, waking up. I was back at the hospital, with my mother by my side, and life around me seemed normal, but I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I had seen the truth, and now it was my mission to spread it. With a sigh, I murmured, "Jesus."